Hello everyone, and how is it going? So in today's video we have some Blue Protocol news. Recently a number of articles of interviews with the Blue Protocol team were released. A number simultaneously actually, so we had two from Famitsu, a couple from Dengeki Online, one from Online Gamer, and one from 4Gamer. So in this video, I haven't been able to read through all the articles yet, but in this video we're going to be looking at one of the articles from Famitsu and see what it had to say. So to start out, the title of the article, or what the headline up here is, Blue Protocol, there was a reason for the bag only being able to carry a limited number of items, interview about a CBT being held while Japan was under a state of emergency declaration. And for the introduction, it says that because of the coronavirus, the test was held while Japan was under a state of emergency declaration. Bandai Namco Online and Bandai Namco Studio was no different than many other companies in Japan that started working remotely. Under these new conditions, there were surely a lot of hardships. This article looks at the behind the scenes of Blue Protocol at that time, as well as the upcoming development based on player feedback. So let's introduce those people being interviewed. Those who have watched the live stream should be familiar with their faces. Yeah, so the same people right here, but down here they have their introductions, or their backgrounds here. So first up we have Shimooka Sokichi. He is the executive producer of Bandai Namco's online project Sky Blue. Next up we have Suzuki Takahiro. He is Blue Protocol's management director and producer. And last we have Fukuzaki Keisuke. He is Blue Protocol's development director. So let's look at the article. So in this article's first section, we gained some insight that the CBT's purpose was for data collection, and the test had some differences to other titles developed overseas. Let me skip a little bit, but Suzuki tells us that the closed beta test was just a test based on feedback they got from players. They will need to fix various things. And while it may have been an inconvenience to players, they were able to collect valuable data. In particular about the game servers, they were able to identify issues that they couldn't find when doing in-house testing where they only had around 100 players. They plan to use the data they collected to make an even better game. Next we have Fukuzaki also tells us problems that the development team was aware of was also pointed out to them by the players. So when making an online game, one does not just make it and stop. Management also costs money, as well as they need to maintain servers. So even if they make an amazing quality game, there would be no point to it if they couldn't keep the maintenance costs up. So if everything was too costly to maintain and the game only had like a year lifespan, there would be no point. So they need to keep that in mind while making it. And another part of the test was identifying areas where money should be spent. And as a result, the players and the developers seemed to be mostly on the same page. Fukuzaki said he felt some relief from this, and he gave him confidence that he is looking at things the same way as the players moving forward. Next up we have Shimooka gives us some insight between differences between closed beta tests for games developed overseas and for Blue Protocol. For many games being developed overseas that have tests in Japan, the game's service is already up and running overseas and the content of the game is already finished. The test is used mostly to check for localization problems. This leaves many players to associate closed beta tests with something of a demo of the game. But for Blue Protocol, its purpose was just for data collection, and changes were made to the game based on the conditions of the test. Also based on the player feedback, they plan to continue to make an even better game, so they want players to rest assured. Alright, next we're going to be looking at the next main section of the article. So the article's next session looks at some of the issues that occurred when moving to remote work. First up was the issue of setting up equipment and connections for those at home while also paying attention to security problems. There was also some problems with communication. In a remote environment, when trouble occurs, it can be difficult to grasp what is happening at that moment. Online meetings and such were held, but even still, collaborations and decisions were slowed down. The start of the closed beta test being delayed was also one such communication issue that occurred. Also, urgent messages took time to get responses occasionally, and normally it is just possible just to go to a person's seat and talk to them directly. But in a remote environment, it can't be done. Information was not as easily shared as in a normal work environment. But it was a valuable experience from a management standpoint, although the delayed start inconvenienced players. We have Suzuki tell us that Shimuoka told him that when making decisions, one must think of the players first. So how will it impact players and how should we act in the players' best interest? All right, so for the next section, it looks at what plans there are for future tests and gives us some insight into the game's servers. So let's see what it has to say. So Suzuki explains that Blue Protocol has multiple servers that are connected to form a mega server. Strictly speaking, it's a little bit different, but channels in the game can be thought of as each being connected to their own server. As such, even if one server goes down, the game can be continued to be played. Multiple servers are divided up for towns, field area, dungeons, etc. The maximum number of players per server is also decided. That's what we're talking about right here. We have the 200. So, for example, we have for towns you can have a maximum of 200 players, field areas can have a maximum of 30, and dungeons can have a maximum of 6. Although the cost for each server is the same, so the town area holding the most number of players is the most cost efficient. The interviewer asks if this is the reason players were forced to go back to town so often during the closed beta test. Suzuki explains that while field areas can have a maximum of 30 players, but channels with low number of players need to be regularly merged together. To do that, as a part of the game cycle, they had players regularly return to town. So they didn't want areas to kind of be left with states of just low number of players, because that wasn't very efficient for the servers, and they need to think of that, of the costs of servers and how many areas they have available for players and whatnot. Although the interviewer says that that system causing players to constantly return to town was a little bit stressful. And Fukuzaki said it was the same for the developers. Suzuki says that when looking at the data from the closed beta test, there wasn't a need to have players return to town as frequently. Many players felt like they were being forced to go back to town, but moving forward, we want players to be able to return to town once they have adventured to their satisfaction. So they're gonna be a little bit more lenient and have players be able to explore more without having to return to town so often going forward. They also kind of touched on this during the feedback, where they said that this was the area that they were also kind of like stress testing as a part of like their servers during the closed beta test. Anyways, moving on with the article. So Shimaoka says that this kind of data is something they can't get from internal tests. Even if they were to round up people from around the company, they probably could only have around 300 people playing. So having a beta test that they can have tens of thousands of players playing gives them very important data. Fukuzaki continues to explain that learning what percent of users stay in a certain area for a certain amount of time is not something they can learn from internal tests. People in the company already know the areas in quest, so they can't get a fresh player's perspective from them. From the data they get from large-scale tests, they can adjust their calculations and reduce costs, so adjusting how many servers are available for each thing, so they can have an efficient supply of things lined up. And with these reduced costs, this also allows them to increase the quality of other areas of the game. Alright, so moving on. So Suzuki then comments how solo play also has quite a high server cost because you have just like one player in a single server, which isn't very cost efficient. But as part of enjoying the Blue Protocol world, the main scenario is very important. As such, they can decide that is an area they want to put money into. Next, the interviewer asks at what pace future live streams will take place. So right here, so we're talking about that. So Suzuki says that after the closed alpha test, they were completely silent, but they don't plan to be silent going forward. They also mentioned it in their Twitter post, but moving forward, depending on the circumstances, they plan to post videos and hold live streams, although it may be a little bit different format than what they have done so far. Shimaoka continues to say that he knows that players are worried about such things as mounts and bags. He believes that there are multiple solutions to these problems, and something such as just increasing a bag's size is not a full fix. As such, once all changes have been done to the bag and internal testing is complete, he would like to have an opportunity to properly explain the changes to players. Fukuzaki also says that for closed beta test feedback, the developers responded to a lot of things by just writing "under consideration." So they're thinking about doing something. That is not because they have just begun thinking of the solution though, but because they have multiple solutions that they want to consider, and they want to consider which is the best one. Also, what is written in the feedback report only deals with what was in the closed beta test, and not everything that will be in the game. The interviewer next asks about Blue Protocol's upcoming schedule. Alright, yeah, so the upcoming schedule. It's right here. And what they say for this area is Shimaoka responds by saying that in the feedback report, they said that they would be renovating the matching system, so how players are matched together. And without fixing those problems, they can't move to the next step. As such, he can't say at the current moment when an open beta test will be held or when the game will be released. The interviewer next asked about a test for the new matching system. So they're going to be making, fixing and reworking the matching system. So you'd think that they would need a test for the changes made to that. And Shimaoka says he thinks that they will have a test, but it may not be on the same scale as the closed beta tests. And since it will be a test for just matching, players won't need to go into the field areas. Instead of openly looking for testers, they may just hold a test silently. If they do, they may just invite certain players from the closed beta test, and if needed, look for additional testers. In any case, they plan to start with fixing the matching system, and until that is fixed, they can't say if another closed beta test is needed or if they will move on to an open beta test. However, being that they showed the game to the world once, they promise to make the game even better and present it to everyone. So yes, those were the main points from this article. I hope you enjoyed the summary. There's still a number of articles of interviews with the developers that were released that I haven't looked at yet, so if I find some time, I will try to translate those. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.